Good morning. I'm Denise Burns from the Northwest Georgia Republican Assembly. First off, we do want to thank you for agreeing to participate in our candidate interview. We feel discussions like these serve to create a more informed voting electorate so we can make the best decision possible to elect the candidates that best represent our values. Also, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we are respecting and obeying all CDC guidelines and practicing social distancing. Before we begin, you should know that each candidate for each office has received the exact same number of questions. We ask that you please keep answers to a reasonable time frame. Using 2 to 3 minutes for each question, give the answers that you want to give. There is no right or wrong answer, just your answer. Let's begin. Would you please introduce yourself and state the office that you are running for?
Yes, I'm Gary Autry, running for Tax Commissioner of Catoosa County.
As tax commissioner, would you pledge to post the dozens of homestead exemptions in layman terminology to the county website, at your office, or both?
Yes.
You're going to keep it between 2 and 3 minutes?
Absolutely.
Does this anticipated economic downturn make the recent property tax assessment increase a huge boondoggle as values will eventually implode?
Can you repeat that question?
Yes.
Okay.
Does the anticipated economic downturn make the recent property tax assessment increase a huge boondoggle as values will eventually implode?
I don't know that it will. Obviously, we're too early into this. I know that the jobs will be lost, but I don't know how long we'll be into it. So if we can do a quick turnaround, I don't see a big problem with any of that at this point in time.
Aside from experience, what separates you from your opponent? How much contrast can you offer to the citizens who watch this interview?
Well, I don't know my opponent that well, quite honestly. Obviously, being a tax commissioner for 3.5 years, I certainly have the experience necessary to do the job. People can gauge the job I've already done to know if they like it or if they don't like it. My goal in the beginning was always to create an environment that was friendly, efficient for the customers, which is our citizens of this county, and we believe we've done that. We've created a lot of changes within the office through extended hours, whether it be early Tuesdays or late Thursdays for the customer. We've revamped the entire web page to e-services. We went through entire tag and title system renewed by the state last year. If we did not do that, we would not be able to serve the public today through web pages, through email. The new system is called Drives, which allowed us e-service capabilities statewide. So you can simply view the web page online and get connected to the state, pay your tag, do your business. You can even do property the same way, which has really made a big difference since we've gone through this coronavirus experience so far. We have been able to continue business. A little bit more difficult, obviously, because of the restrictions as far as distancing. We have gotten we do through the door. We got a drop box. Thank God for the drop box. It's been a salvation for us thus far. We believe that hopefully in a few weeks we'll have glass installed where we can keep that distance as well within our office and start to open up a limited amount of people into the office as this continues to open back up. And we're glad to be able to do that. But some of the other things we made changes on is obviously faster computer systems. Staff has been totally retrained to where anybody can accept payments. Now there are some difficulties that come to do with when you're actually doing the title work or dealing with bankruptcies or dealing with some deeper property or tag information that everybody can't do. It takes a lot more training to do that, but anybody can accept the payment. And that speeded up. We had an 18-minute wait time when I came to the office. We reduced it to 4.5 minutes on average, which was tremendous. And we did that through cross-training. We did have to upgrade systems when I say that, computers that were faster to operate two systems instead of just one system. We was able to do that. With a phone system that had a message and multiple lines, we was able to do that to increase service to the customer. And everyone that comes in is spoken to. That was not the character of the office in the past. We want people greeted, get them in and out as fast as they can, just to serve them any way we can. And the best thing is that we've always encouraged, when it comes to exemptions, we ask the questions. Are you signed up for the latest exemptions? Do you know about the new one or anything like that? We have a folder on the front of the desk that talks about the new exemption we come up with this year. So anything new, we're trying to keep that up front. But as things get old, 20 years old, most likely everybody knows about those. But we still ask and check their actual file to what they've been updated to. And that's something that wasn't done in the past. And I can understand why, if you start to go back for years, how things were done. So, but we made a lot of changes like that. I think that's the biggest thing that I took office that people appreciated the most, is the actual experience. It's being friendly, it's being genuine, and the people in my office know that they work for the customers, which is the Catoosa County citizens, not me. They work for them as well. And that's a big change in attitude. And the other things we did within our office as well on the same tone is that the people, my staff was not ever, I guess, appreciated in a way that we do now. We have, each year we provide little trophies or things out for people who, customers have commented on how well a person's done, with suggestion boxes, and they leave us emails saying praising the staff member, and who gets the most appraisals from the individuals, which is the customers, that's who gets awarded the Customer Service Year of the Award. And then we have awards for service. We have awards for I can't think of, there's several ones. Anyway, they really appreciate being recognized for the service that they actually perform. And it's gone a long way to motivating people to be friendly and continuous courteous service.
Are the cities of Ringgold and Fort Oglethorpe required by Georgia code to pay fees, commissions, or overall percentages for the collection of property taxes to the County Tax Commission office?
Yes.
If so, where does that money specifically wind up?
Yeah. What we have, as you would probably think, that there's, once you have a municipality, that they're separate from the county aspect. And a tax commissioner, county tax commissioner is hired, or not hired, is elected by the citizens to collect county taxes. And that's the authorization that stops. He's not authorized to collect city taxes or fire payments or anything else associated with the county in collections. It's Catoosa County taxes. And we're an agent for the state to collect taxes on, or actually it's a TABT on your motor vehicles and your title fees and etc. So that's our job as we're elected. These cities obviously are independent, and they have their own fire, or used to have their own. They have their own police service. They have their own elected officials. They have their own staff, administration for many other things, sewer, etc. that they collect for. And they have the authority, obviously, to collect their own taxes if they choose to. But it's more expensive for them to do it themselves. So they elect to have the tax commissioner collect taxes for them. And to do so, there has to be a contract to make that legal, because then I'm accepting responsibility of taking their money and then making agreements of when I send it back to them. So that's a contract that's between the tax commissioner and each city, if they elect to do that. And there are 2 cities in Catoosa County do elect to do that right now. And the contract states 30 days I can drop it or they can drop it. And through that contract, I initiate the county as well. So we receive a fee for the county, board of commissioners, the county, and the tax commissioner gets a fee for collecting city taxes. And the fee is today is $1.50 per partial. So for exactness, I don't know if it's an exact number, but I would be paid $6,000 some odd to collect Fort Oglethorpe taxes, and probably $2,000 some odd, or maybe more, $3,000, depending on how many partials there are. I can't remember today. $2,000 or $3,000 to collect their taxes. And some people say that's just too much, but you got to think, we got a system that increases in price every year. The property tax system goes up $2,000 every year. County's not paying for that. City's not paying for that. County's paying for that. We have to perfect a digest. In other words, once the digest is done, we're reviewing that constantly, looking at anything that's changed, anybody's moved in, moved out, if properties have been changed in name, or if they cities have taken more properties. All these things are laid out, and we have to look at it. You can imagine how thick a digest actually may be. So we take the responsibility to do that well and correct. The distribution, the legal distribution that I take on myself to take their money is a pretty big responsibility. If I'm collecting $3 or $4, $6 million, whatever it is for them, and then dispersing it on time every time and get that to them. And then we conduct the business just as we do county business. In other words, if I have properties that have to be sold for taxes that aren't paid, then I have to go to a property sale. So I'm taking that responsibility, that expense that the county's taking on to actually produce the documents required to search for the future owners or that's going to get this money if they passed or deceased. So there's a lot of work to be done for that. And then you're doing 5-phase, you're doing levies. They're all legal documents that we have to do in order to ever proceed with that sale. And then there's the collection part. There's a receiving part with billing, and then there's a collection part that goes along. So the actually property taxes, I thought when I came to this job, well, 3 months it'd all be over. It's never over. It goes into one season and into the next. And then there's multiple types of property, 5, 6 different types of property. You have mobile home property that's different than personal. That's different than real property. Real property is deemed as your land that you live on, your home. And then you have personal property that could be the items that's within your business that's taxed. Then you fill out a document each year for that return, called a tax return to the assessors, and they're valuing your property as personal property as taxes. Mobile home has a different schedule than the real property, so it starts I think it ends in April, where the other one starts and ends in December. So there's simultaneously some types of property or collections are being done. In other words, once you get through with real, after deadlines due, and then after so many days, you get penalties and interest, obviously, if you're late, that's set by the state, and we collect those as well. But what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that once the real property's done, if it hasn't been paid, then we start another process. It's in the collection side. After a delinquent period of time, then we have to take those to property sales as well. And we try to get them to pay before it gets to that direction. But it's a lot more involved than people actually realize. It's a lot more than just putting a stamp on the envelope and putting it in the bill. That's a lot more work involved in that. But it's always assumed that that's why we shouldn't be paid, because we're just adding a line to a bill. It's not that simple. Trust me, just the exemptions alone and coding. A system in coding, just like the system we have, only has 4 places for coding. So if I have Fort Oglethorpe tax exemptions, if I have state tax exemptions, if I have county's tax exemptions, I only got 4 places to put this code in. So the codes are very confusing. And the reason they're confusing is simply because we only have 4 decimal places to put the codes. It's much easier to say, well, you got a 62, a 65, a handicap, or other type of exemptions. It's easier just to say that, but if they start to get into coding, it's very confusing. And it's confusing because there's not enough decimal places to put every single body's different codes in there. We have to combine them. If you're a combined code F24, 224, it's a combination of Fort Oglethorpe with county combinations in it. It's very confusing for the layperson just not to understand. So it's very simple. Just say, hey, what's your income, what's your age, what's your condition? Are you handicapped or not? And then we can figure out what you need. But we can post as much as we can on the web page when we say that that's understandable. And most of those are understandable. And so it's clean when it says if you're 20,000 less and you're disabled, there's an exemption for you. Each exemption is written differently based upon the resolution. The differences may be, one may be referred to as earned income, one may be referred to as gross income, one may be referred to as federal adjusted gross income. Well, all those are differences when we're actually having to apply the exemption. So that's even hard for people to understand. But they ask the question, we ask the right questions. Now, what I would like to get to, I hope to one day, is to get to what I call a SMART system. We ask simple questions. How old am I? 65. What's my income? This. Am I handicapped? No. Am I been a veteran? Yes. Then it tells you what you get. If we ever get to that point, I'll be very happy.
Who controls spending by the tax commissioner's office? Examples such as new vehicles, out-of-county training, or building modifications amidst the COVID-19 epidemic.
Who controls spending? Once a budget has been developed and approved by the Board of Commissioners, the tax commissioner owns that owns that budget and controls that spending. So spending is a two-part question. When you look at spending, it's about how do you budget for it? Is it based upon last year, 10 years ago? Is it based on what's you see coming? And is any amendments going to take place like this year? They're going to now require us to have scanners, the state will. So there's $10,000 this year. We didn't know it was coming last year. We thought that the state might pick that cost up. They did not pick that cost up. So it's not in the budget. We didn't know it to even put it in there. So this year, I got $10,000 additional expenses required by the state to have scanners put in, so we're no longer mailing titles anymore. They're being scanned, which is great. It saves mailing, and one day you can pay for the scanners, but not immediately. You still got a cost that's going to be deferred to. So yes, the tax commissioner, once the budget's approved, has that whatever word you said there, the responsibility, I guess, and authority to do so.
What have you done to prepare yourself to be a good leader and representative of the people? Or what did you do before you ran the first time?
Yeah, I did a lot of things before I ran the first time, and done a lot of things since then. First of all, what prepares you to be a leader is, I guess, your life experiences. I'm the oldest child of 4 in our family. So if anybody who's the oldest child realizes you have assumed a little more responsibilities just as a child by taking care of your younger siblings, by always being first to put a threshold with your family, hey Dad, can I go borrow the car? You're always first to do these things. So you're paving a way in every aspect. It kind of develops some skill sets that are needed to actually lead. And that gave me a kind of a head start to want to excel and achieve, whether it be in Boy Scouts or in ball or playing ball or games or church or whatever. You always wanted to help more or help take care of someone, like a mom or dad. So I think that throughout my experiences through life and jobs, which is in every organization that I have served, I have worked my way up to top leadership. Just down the road here, not very far, was a building that I used to work in, my first office. I began as a repair technician. After tech school, coming out of tech school, I was electronics and electromechanical engineering, and I just loved the idea of making something better. So we actually began manufacturing telephone handsets just right down the road here. And it was a great experience. Being a young company, small, gave you many opportunities that you couldn't maybe get in a larger corporation because it was too hard. You'd have to compete more maybe. But in a smaller organization, you have less to compete with, and you were more drafted into, hey, be a purchasing manager, learn this job, and you did. And the next thing you knew, you're plant managing. You have 80 people working for you. The next thing you do, you're learning to be a vice president. Not only now working but you're looking to lead in future your investments of directions of engineering and products you want to make. You're responsible now for such as driving the cost down to where your margins are better, because that's how you're paid. So you have many different experiences with smaller companies and growing into larger companies, and then when you sell to Fortune 500 companies, you even have more experience. Now you're on boards. You're making decisions that affect many people. you're dealing with large amounts of money. You know, the county money we talk about today, I mean, the company I actually run before, my budget's $1 million at this county, more or less 1 million something. And most of that's obviously salaries. But the companies I came from, I mean, I had a $70 million company I ran. It was all that I ran. And I had like a $12 million budget that I operated with 170 people and staff. I was in 12 different states working, and had a lot of responsibilities. These things here gave me a vast amount of experience when it comes to understanding budgets, understanding government a little bit better, resolutions, understanding operations, efficiencies, and certainly customer service. I'm a strong believer in providing customer service. So, I mean, I've had experiences with every single of those, whether it be dealing with growth of companies, choosing directions, taking leadership roles that says, okay, you know, we're here and we got to get here, and we got 12 months to do it. I got to reduce inventories, get more turns, or if it's got to be increase margins by reducing cost, and that's through engineering a product, increased time of building a product. Anything you could do, you have to do all those kind of things at the same time. Forecasting, for instance, you'd have to foresee, look ahead. In this plant here we used to operate, I had to build product 1 year in advance. So I had to understand the market that we were in and target every build so that we're not wasting any money. And we had like, I forget how many thousand different products I'd actually sit down and do a forecast of a build. And I would know every single component, every single cost of all those things. And I didn't even know that I'd actually learned all that, because we didn't even have computers at some point in time. And some guy said, well, how do you know that? I said, just because I've done it all my life. So they would take what was in our head and put into a computer and become a program, and before you know it, things were a lot easier. But we had to contain and retain a lot of memory capacity to remember all those kinds of things in order to do the best job to our abilities. But today is a different day. Today we have a lot of aids and support systems that help us to do better and work faster. So I think through leadership roles of all the jobs I've had in the past, which is basically electronics, I've done, I mean, to keep a job like that for any time frame, it's always not about what you did yesterday, it's about what you're doing today. So I understand those goals and objectives and how to move fast like that and get things done. And good leaders don't take no for an answer. They keep pushing till they get it done. And that's as simple as it really is. If you've got the capacity to keep moving forward, to know that there's a direction you need to be in, and then to know what it takes to get you there. And there's a lot of moving parts with anything I'm talking about, trying to get to a new direction. It takes a lot of things to do. You can't just, it don't just happen. That's what people think, well, you just got a new system. No. It took a lot of people to get a new system with the state. It took a lot of planning to get systems upgraded and get the budget to say, hey, I need a 32 meg computer instead of a 12 or 6 meg computer because I'm running dual systems, to convince people and say that it's better for the customers, we're going to be faster, we can wait on people with less people required. So I mean, just any of these things that we talk about, it's more than just a stamp on a bill. Just put it that way. It's a lot more involved than just a stamp on the bill.
How many council or commission meetings did you attend before you were elected?
Not very many. That year I was running for election, I started obviously being more involved. But prior to that, I could care less about government, quite honestly. I mean, I was too busy running corporations and businesses to be even a part of my community at some point in time. I'd spend 6 months out of here in Minneapolis or somewhere else, and not even in my own community. So I spent many years growing as a young director and vice president of corporations, that not really involved in the community that much, and not overly concerned because I had my plate full with many other things at that time.
How about within the last year?
Yeah, the last year, what I'd say I've attended, and last year I'd say I attend probably 6 out of 12 when it comes to county. Cities, I probably spend 1 or 2 out of 12. That's not as much of my forte as what the the county is, obviously.
As tax commissioner, do you notice that people complain or even struggle to pay their property taxes? Given the way the world's changed and the actions that local and state government have taken, how do you think the current COVID crisis changes the way you see yourself in this job?
You know, my job is pretty well defined. My job is to collect the taxes, and we operate according to those guidelines, whatever they may be for the state requirements, city or county requirements. That's what we're going to do. That's the job I have. It's not to make policy when it comes to taxes. It's to process those policies. You know, I think that there are certain things the tax commissioner can do that I've already done. We took a little pressure off of when the property sale of someone's home is. I spoke to our county lawyer and looked at all the other. Anything I decide is not done in a vacuum. I review other counties, other states, and what they do. When I say the decisions that we can make, obviously I could sell someone's home after 120 days delinquent. That's my authority to do so. I choose not to. I do real property on the third year currently. On the third year of delinquent, your property sold. But you're being taxed at a very high rate. Not taxed, you're being penalized at a high rate for not paying. 20% a year plus 1%. One's a penalty and one's a interest that is being fined because you haven't paid. But some cases there are where that might be worth it. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you had a death in the family and you can't get things together. So you've got time. Nobody's putting pressure on you. You're going to have some interest you're going to have to pay for when you get things back on the right direction. But the tax commissioner of Catoosa County is not putting that pressure on you for that length of period of time. Now when it comes to personal property taxes, if you've got a business, you're not going to be able to go that long. If you got a mobile home, it could be packed up and gone. I can't wait 3 years because those are little different instances. But one thing for sure, whatever class you fall into, you get the same treatment as everybody else. I don't look at who's on the delinquent bill when it comes time for the sale. When I say that, I don't look if you're on it, or if the judge is on it, or if a commissioner's on it. If they come up and they're in that grouping, it's going to be sold. You're going to get FIFA'd on. You're going to be levied on. My mama's on it. It doesn't matter, and that's what a good policy represents. Policies we had in the past were not so much that way. They were defined based upon an individual circumstances, not a group circumstance. So my policy is built around group circumstances, period. No differentiation. If you've got, it's all done the same. It doesn't matter. So if a lady comes in here and says, my taxes are too high and I've got a $2 million house and I've got a $10,000 tax bill, what can I do for them? There's nothing I can do for them. I didn't set in those guidelines. All I could say is get a smaller house. You know, maybe your house is too big, and that's not being smart. But it's just saying, hey, it's based on the values. If you want smaller taxes, get smaller values, which is pretty common sense if you think about it. But I guess to answer your question, that's it.
Last question.
Okay.
Will you pledge here on video that you will do everything that is possible to eliminate spending over last year to mitigate the burden on taxpayers headed into what everyone thinks is an economic downturn?
I mean, just like when I came to the office, this is what people don't realize. Like a tax commissioner's budget, there's very little funds that actually control. If you had $1 million policy and $1 million budget and $750,000 was people which serving the public, and if you got 14 of them, there's nothing to cut unless you want to cut services. As simple as that. Below that, you got postage, $30,000. Well, if you don't want the bills mailed, they won't get cut. So I mean, I don't control that part. All is a very small amount, probably $15,000, when it comes to training, which we always need. If we don't keep up with what's going on and to staff our training, we're not going to be able to serve you well. So that's pretty much all we control. I'm trying to think of anything else in there. Our paper that we use, our computers if they break down, They should be on a 7-year replacement. If a printer goes out, I got to have a printer. I mean, that's the only things we have. We don't have anything that. The only thing I was able to reduce when I first came in, which I'm a big reduction person, being my background in businesses where that's how your money's made. The first thing I was able to do within the first 3 months was reduce banking fees. The county used to pay $8,000 annually for banking, and I thought was quite ridiculous. So I got 8 quotes. I went out and got 8 different quotes throughout the region here. I only found one that would do it for nothing. But I used that with the bank that we had and asked them that if we're providing you with $40 or $50 million, I don't think we should be paying any kind of fees at all. And they said, well, we can't do that. And I said, well, I've got 8 quotes that says one of them says you can. And they said, really? And I said, yes, sir. And I said, furthermore, I believe you've overbilled us the year before. So in order to continue our business with me, now that I have and the tax commission choose that option of who we bank with, you're going to have to write me a check for $4,432 back to the county, and you're not going to bill us anything in the coming year. And they said, well, I can't make that decision. I said, well, you better find somebody who can, because I have found somebody who can. And they wrote the check. They come back within 2 weeks and gave me a check for $4,400 some odd, and we give it to the county, of course. And we don't pay anything for fees anymore. So that was the only thing we had outside that really could be changed. The system we have to spend, I don't know how many thousand, 20 something, maybe $30,000 now for the system to keep it up, the property system. That's an agreement with Thompson Reeder, who is the company that we work with, who provides the system. We spend an annual fee just to keep that system. I have a $750, I think, bill for the web page every quarter. I mean, I have to keep up. That's our big service. If we didn't have it now, we'd be in trouble as a county and everything. So it's very little when it comes to expenses. Somebody wants to talk about a car. We had a car once this last year. We got finally budgeted for it. But when I came to office, we had a car that was 14 years of age. And on this tape here, I'll be really reluctant to say all that we use the car for. But we need the car for, would it be banking, the other office moving titles back and forth, the personnel we got, being trained. All of us have to be trained, not just the tax commissioner. When you got a new drive system, there's 96 different modules with this system you have to learn. If I get a new employee next week, they got to be trained. So these things that we talk about, people jump up and down like a car. Well, we drive over 8,000 miles a year with the county car we got. Okay, and some of it's training, but a lot of it's every day, 23 miles apart or 12 miles apart, going back and forth to Fort Oglethorpe or our banks or other things we do. And then when we have property sales, we have to post properties. So I have to go out to people's property, put a sign on the thing, or take somebody with me to put a sign on the thing, and we have to be deputized to even do that. That's why I'm an ex officio sheriff as well, and I have 3 or 4 deputies within the office that can do that as well. But people don't realize we have to drive to go do that. And there's nothing worse than driving your county car, or not your county car, but the car that's not your county car, and somebody raising cane because you're on the property with a seal of the county car that softens the introduction of why you're here. Whether it be to sell the property, post the property, or in some cases, if they don't pay their personal property tax, we have to lock the doors. So those are things that's not easy, but those things that's part of the job, and it's part that we have to do. So a car, do have a new car this year, last year and this year. It's one I actually can get in. Somebody mentioned that because I'm a pretty good sized guy, because we had a real small vehicle. But I haven't even drove it other than the day that we got it. And I didn't drive it home. I don't drive it home. It's only used for the business. The girls use it. The guys that work there, they have business to run for our county, and it saves us money by doing so. The best thing we was able to see right away is when we had the second car, since we have 2 offices. We had people in Fort Oglethorpe that hardly ever come back to what we call the main office, because we was always having to go one way. But now they can come back and get reinstituted to what's new today and get back to feel of picking up their paperwork and seeing me or somebody else instead of us always having to go one way. So it's been a real good thing for them to experience that again. Now I did for a while have to move people back and forth just to keep them in tune with what was going on. Instead of, there's not any room in the Fort Oglethorpe office where we are. I hope to one day this county can get to one location, maybe in the middle of the county, colonnade with a building. We would have to have one office, and maybe we could reduce the staff and the buildings necessary in cost, and then just need one car. So I could see a couple $100,000 savings if we could get to that. Would be from now on. So maybe one day our county could be wealthy enough to have another building, because we're all bumping shoulders as it is now. Can't have drive-throughs very effectively. A drive-through would save our life today. And literally could save your life today if we had drive-through capabilities. We just don't have spaces to do those kinds of things. It's nothing I haven't asked for. It's nothing I would like to have. It's just when we can afford it, hopefully we can get there and do those kind of things. It just increases service. I'm a real guy that believes in increasing service. So sometimes service costs more. It does. But if you want that faster service, that ability to extend hours or to pay, I mean, these are things that help our citizens. And I'm all for those every time. And if I can get them and make moves for them and make it easier for them anyway, I'm going to do it. And if I can get it in the budget, sometimes it might be a few dollars more, I'm going to try to do it because I believe in it. It's a better service to the citizens of this county.
I'll give you 1 minute to wrap up.
Okay, wrap up. It's been a privilege to have served this county for the last 3.5 years. I have been a tax commissioner, and I've enjoyed. I didn't think I would. You know, who enjoys taxes? The joke is for me is that when I ran for office, I called my pastor up and said, "You know, is it possible for a tax commissioner to go to heaven?" And you remember some of the stories. And I said, he said, "Yeah, you know, Matthew was a tax commissioner and he was a disciple." I said, "That's good. I might have a chance." I said, because I've been praying about running for this office. The story is that how I came about, nobody dreams of being a tax commissioner, I hope. I certainly haven't and didn't. But as I was ending my career as a electronic technician and as a vice president and running corporations, as that career was coming to an end, I had bought a farm, and I wasn't as busy because I was used to being extremely busy, traveling all over the state, and all over the country. And then when you come to the farm, you just kind of you and some cows and doing some hay in the tractor. And it's kind of nice and quiet, but yet after a period of time, you kind of get to missing that high activity levels you were involved with. So I was griping to the assessors about my taxes, and couldn't understand why my taxes were going up. I'm trying to farm, land keeps going up. I'm making less, and so I'm complaining, right? So I walk out the door after complaining to Dale and Ann, and I see that Sandra was going to leave. I said, "Well, I'm just going to run for this office and see what y'all are doing over here." That's the last words I said. Then I come home and actually give that some serious thought, and knew that with my background that I could probably do some help, actually do some things that would be good, because I'm not afraid to push the buttons, whether wrong, right, left, upside down, and make an inroad for a better way. I was accustomed to doing those kind of things, so I said, "Yeah, I'm going to do it." So I ran, worked hard, campaigned hard, met the people, and started hearing the things that I thought already, but they confirmed the things. Nobody likes paying taxes. I'm just like everybody else. I still don't like paying taxes. But I tell you, after taking the job and getting a first-hand view at some different things that I didn't know, obviously, because I've never done the job before. I remember 3 years ago when I did an interview like this, I said, I think a tax commissioner ought to actually be hired instead of elected. That's the words that came out of my mouth before I knew better. But they're not, and there's a good reason now that I found out. And the good reason is if you were hired by the county, then if the county commissioners decided to, well, let's hold that money for a few weeks. Let's not give it to the school. Let's not send it to the state. Let's hold it back from the city. Well, I would work for the county, and I'd be authorized to do what they said. But I don't work for the county board of commissioners. I work for the citizens of this county. And that's why elections are so important. That gives me the autonomy to do the right thing, and nobody can put their finger on your back and ask you to do those kind of things, because you don't have to. You only report to you, the citizens of this county, and do what's right. And that's a good enough reason not to ever hire a tax commissioner, but actually elect one. And you can choose me or somebody else at any time you choose so. And that's a real great American thing, I guess, free elections like they are. But I'm proud to be a Republican. And I want you to know that now, because you don't see many conservative Christian people, when I say conservative values, in a lot of the Democratic aspects today, but you still see it in the Republican Party. And it's a value I hope we never lose, because there's something within that itself that provides a strength and a willingness to continue to do what's right, no matter what people think or don't think. Any type of servant, many people will say, I dreamed of being a tax commissioner when I was a kid. I want to be this. That's why I'm running. I don't follow all that. I've never dreamed of being a tax commissioner or wanted to be a tax commissioner or any public servant to that degree. But as you end a career in your life and you really care about people, if you've been a Sunday school superintendent, or if you've been involved in churches, and really have an understanding of how you receive joy. See, joy is received through serving, and serving only. There's no joy outside of that. There's happiness, but joy, Christian, what we call joy, comes from serving others. If it's just a job, there's not much joy in it sometimes. But if you can see, it's not about the money. In taking this job along, I've already lost personally $80,000. Okay, you say, well, I get a salary for $60,000 or $70,000, whatever it may be, I get, but I've lost 80. And how you lose 80 is like running for election, spending $22,000 on a campaign. I can't do any favors for anybody, so nobody's giving me any money. So other people might get $20,000 or get money from a senator or something. I don't get anything except my friends and loved ones, maybe from people from church. They give me a little money. I get $3,000 for they're getting $20,000. So the blunt of that, I have to spend out of my income. So it'll be another $18,000 I've lost. First year around, I did get 10 grand. This year, since the way things are going, I'm lucky to get 3,000. So, but I'm still spending 20. So those are my expenses that are lost, and not being as dedicated to the farm and being more dedicated to the county, I lose money on the farm. For instance, I wasn't paying attention to having my cattle bred. Simple as that, right? So I had 30 cows that didn't get bred. That's $30,000 I lost last year. Or if we go through a drought, I'm not able to do things I need to do. So there's a loss to a lot of people who serve today. It's not all about making money. We don't make as much money as sometimes we actually lose. So it's not a job to be saying, I need a job. And it's really a servant. If you don't have a servant's heart, if you're not interested in helping, then, I guess that's it, right? Is you want me to end it, right?
Yeah, we're hitting
okay.
right up to our time frame.
All right, thank you for allowing me to serve. And let me just say this last thing. Keeping the citizens first is a priority for me. And I have done that for the last 3 years, and I plan on continuing that. Okay. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you for making yourself available for the interview.
You're most welcome.